Well, that's it. I mean, my favorite prelude, thank you, Lee, and my favorite hymns, my favorite singer, of course, my favorite people. Appreciate you all coming to my wake. So, here we go. It was on our choir tour of Great Britain, I think that must have been 6 years ago, that we learned a phrase, sad to say. Our guide, someone I think said his name was Peter. On the coach, he would say something like, well, sad to say, looks like rain today. Or sad to say, we're not going to park anywhere near the church. Sad to say, we seem to be lost. And we picked that up. And I heard it just twice on the radio this week, somebody saying, sad to say. So, I've written in my journal and I've complained to my wife much more than I should have. I've talked to God about this. I've conferred with church leaders. And now, sad to say, this is the day. Almost any time we feel obliged to make a change or change comes upon us, it's accompanied by a certain degree of sadness. Now, this comes as no surprise, for change, however timely, however desirable, means leaving something behind, and that causes us pain. You buy a new car, and then you realize how much you miss the old one, unless it was just a junker. Or you move to a new job or a new community, and you miss some of the things you had there and some of the people that you knew there. You have your first child, and while you rejoice in the new life that this brings to you, this priceless gift, there are days when you miss the peace and quiet that once was yours. So in my mind, I can accept the sadness that my official retirement brings. I just have to convince my heart that a little sadness is perfectly normal, and that a few tears now and then is not a ticket to Metropolitan State Hospital. Sadness. I appreciate the many expressions of sadness that you folks have extended to me. But as Kenny Rogers sings, you got to know when to hold 'em and know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away and know when to run. So it seems the time has come to walk away, to step back and to recognize that new leadership has come to us and that my role is no longer necessary. My family doctor, whom I've had for almost 30 years, recently retired, and I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? What if I don't like the new doctor? I haven't even met him yet. My daughter, who couldn't be here today, only yesterday was a cute little campfire girl. She's retiring next year. Now, I can't let her retire before I do. So change comes more rapidly with every passing year. You remember Lee Iacocca, who bailed out Chrysler some years ago and said, you either lead, follow, or get out of the way. So a big part of me says it's time to get out of the way. My ministry here, as most of you know, is closely tied to that of John Calhoun. When I agreed to work with John, my personal idea was to work either 5 years or until he retired, whichever came first. Here we are 14 years later. And it's time for the church to move on. That I've survived all these years is, I think, testimony to the love and support and encouragement that you folks have given to me, expressed in so many different ways. As my favorite singer expressed here just a moment ago, you raised me up to more than I could be. And I thank you for that. The one question I've been asked more than any other is what I'm going to do when I retire. And the short answer is, I don't know. I've thought of a few things. I could be a crossing guard, I think. Could do that. And you could see me at Walmart as a greeter. Actually, if I could find a few well-heeled backers, I'd run for Congress. I couldn't do any worse than they're doing back there. I don't have any specific plans for the next couple of decades, but I would say in all seriousness that God has faithfully guided my steps so far, even when I didn't want to follow, and I trust that He will continue to do so. I just need to be open to whatever future God has for me. So that's kind of the segue into my sermon. I need to direct our thinking toward the changes that we're experiencing as a congregation. Because like it or not, we're in a transitional stage here at MBCC. Some of the changes have come upon us, others we have deliberately set upon. With serious reflection and prayer and examination. And again, change brings a certain sense of sadness. And our interim minister, Michael, is aware of this and is trained to deal with this, to help us deal with that loss. But change can also be very positive, as Michael also intimated. And that's the road we're on as a congregation. No gain without pain. We say that at the gym. It doesn't work. It's a futile effort, but it's worth the effort. Well, the Apostle Paul, whom Aaron shared with us here a moment ago, so instrumental in getting the early church off the ground, speaks of the church as the body of Christ, which means you and me. And the purpose of a body, you see, is to physically carry out the will and the intentions of the person that inhabits it. So if we believe that the risen Christ lives within the community of faith, the church, then it follows the purpose of the church is to carry out the will of Christ. Our church leadership, and many of you have been involved for months now, trying to define more clearly just who we are as a congregation and what we want to be. We've been trying to express this identity in what we're calling core values that make us a part of the body of Christ. A dear friend back in Virginia sent me a book some time back, which I pick up now and then and glance at, written by Christopher Miracle. It is entitled The Jesus Priorities. And he sought to answer the question, what did Jesus say and do during his lifetime that seemed to be the most important? And he developed then 8 priorities, 8 things that seemed to stand out in the life and ministry of Jesus. This book is intended as a study guide, but I've never gotten that far into it. But I have read about these 8 priorities. The things he considered most vital, most important, are these: healing, loving, praying, spreading the word, building up treasure in heaven, seeking God's will, accepting children as precious, and living with humility. It'd be interesting to take that list and compare it to the core values as we're developing them. I think we would see they were quite compatible. But I suspect, though the words may differ somewhat, that what seems to be left out in his listing is relationship. I mean, Jesus spent a lot of time with his disciples. They ate together and slept and walked the dusty road. They laughed, they cried, they played. How could they not have developed deep, deep feelings for each other? Relationship, bonding. I mention that because I feel this is a very much important part of the body of Christ, the church. Celebrating the love we have for each other and to live out those priorities which we find in Jesus. Now we have a goodly number of older families. We cannot say we have no need of you. We need you, and you need the church. The older we get, you notice I switched from you to we, because I'm in that category. The older we get, the more family and friends we lose, and we may become lonely. And the church can be for us a real family, where we find strength and companionship and love and laughter with our brothers and sisters in the faith. Now, I have heard, not to mention names, some older people complain about not having enough young families in the church. I would say, be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. You know some young families, all of us do. Go out and bring them in. Tell them what a great church this is, one that's been vital in your life for maybe many years. Tell them about the Bible Explorers, and about the children's choirs and the children's theater programs. Tell them about our open and accepting theology where they can feel comfortable. Our long connection to the community, Manhattan Beach. Our desire to listen and to learn from them as young parents. Your insight and wisdom and faithfulness has played a major role in bringing us to where we are today. And we applaud these older families, people who have not said, oh, I've done my part, let somebody else do it for a while. Thank you for your part in being the body of Christ and continuing to hang in there, even as we make some changes which you may find hard to accept and understand and embrace. Now to our young families, let me say, we need you too. And you need to feel needed by us. I know that you young people, young parents, are in the midst of raising children and getting your careers going and running around to soccer practice, taking care of your parents, trying to make ends meet. And you're to be congratulated for making time out of your lives for church. I'm personally energized and encouraged when I see you here, when I talk to your children. And I'm not alone in this. We need you and you need us. In a hectic, complex world, you may find the church to be your extended family, an anchor upon which you can base your life. And your children need the experience of the Christian faith so that when they grow up and start making their own life choices, the life and teachings of Jesus Christ is a part of the equation. And they do grow up. Oh, my goodness. I ran into a friend the other day at a car wash. I was reminded of an incident some probably 20 years ago. Her daughter was playing catch with her dad out on the church lawn. I stopped and watched a minute, and I said, Mark, enjoy every minute of it. She's going to be grown and gone before you know it. And he looked kind of puzzled and said, really? Well, her mother told me just the other day that now she's all grown up and married, midst of a nice career, ready to have her first child. So fast, the passing of time. You young families, enjoy every minute of it. Your life can be so enriched by this association with the church, with other young families, as you support each other and enjoy each other. And you might even find some of these older people that you can adopt as grandparents. I mean, your parents may be living hundreds of miles away. Latch on to somebody here. Some great people here. What about then those are all the people in between?